One of the things that really annoys me as a writer is when I hear or read someone say, I'm going to write a very relatable character for everyone to enjoy. Such a character does not exist. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another Writer's Rant, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And by golly, I do mean it. There really is no such thing as a wholly relatable, identifiable character. Somehow tap into the universal experience of an unknown number of readers who come from so many different backgrounds, there is literally no way that you can cover them all. Here's the thing, when I think about this particular theme, it actually takes me back, and please excuse me for diving a little bit into history right here, to World War II. You see, in World War II, the United States, and not just the United States, but many other countries wanted to make sure that they could bring in as many new recruits for the military as possible. To do so, they created a whole new propaganda that was all about addressing not just you, but addressing you as the farm boy, as the worker, as the guy who doesn't know what to do with his life, that you could become a hero. Oh! And it worked incredibly well. And from that moment on, a lot of writers and a lot of creators wanted to connect with the audience out there. Say that anyone can be a hero. And this is a powerful message. It is a message that anyone wants to hear. That you too can be a hero. That you too can make a difference. That you matter. That you, all of you, your experiences, your background, your skin color, your religion, whatever is integral to you becoming the right hero for the job. Now, I'm not going to peg this as necessarily a bad thing. In fact, actually, I enjoy coming across these kinds of stories where you have a unique individual becoming the hero because of what makes them them. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love the Beyonders trilogy, because the main characters are the heroes not because they possess amazing powers, but because of who they are. And that is a phenomenal kind of story. And I honestly don't mind the whole, hey, here's the farm boy that ends up becoming the hero, or here's the downtrodden person who's actually going to become the superhero that's going to save everything, or here's the heartbroken girl who's going to end up winning over everyone and become the most amazing person at the school, or whatever. I enjoy those stories when they are told well. But here's the thing. I am not some downtrodden person. I do not come from a little rural community. I am not a woman. So how then can I like these stories and in fact find something relatable within these characters? What matters is finding moments that are relatable and then creating a sympathetic character. This is one of the things that so many writers, especially in modern day Hollywood, but also a lot of modern book writers, tend to get wrong. Thankfully, we have moved on from the, I'm not like your average girl, I'm different, I don't look so hot, but really I've got a heart of gold. Thankfully, we've moved along from someone outright stating that, but we've gotten more sophisticated at how we do it, and quite honestly, it delivers the same bland story. And no, not every single rural boy should become the hero of the world. In fact, actually, I would argue that that story kind of gets overdone. In any case, moving on, let's talk about relatability and sympathy. You see, the thing is this, you will never be able to create a character who is relatable to so many others on many different levels. This is one thing that I've seen a lot when people say, hey, look at this heroine or at this hero. Their experience is the same experience as countless thousands of children. And while I have no doubt that some of their experiences are very similar to the experiences of other people, no way have I experienced making friends with centaurs and being turned down for a date by fairies, and then going on to defeating the Dark Lord. If that is your life, please let me ride 2 miles in your shoes, because by golly, I want to do that. But here's the thing. Instead, you as a writer want to write relatable moments for your characters in unique stories. These relatable moments can be maybe not having the best of family lives. Or maybe actually you want to write about how your character actually has a pretty good family life. There are plenty of people who can fall into either camp and have that relatable experience. Maybe you want to write your character dealing with depression. That is something that a lot of people can relate with. But their journey with depression is going to be very different than what you would find within the book. That's because we all come from individual backgrounds. Or you could write about the relatable story of falling in love with someone, the relatable story of losing someone who was close to you, something relatable like learning how to drive a car for the very first time. These are all things that people can relate with. However, they might not entirely relate with the character that you've written. And that is totally fine. In fact, you do not want to try to write the most relatable character who has ever existed. Instead, what you want to do is write these relatable moments and then write a character who the audience can sympathize with. This right here, I think, is one of the reasons why, and to take some easy pot shots at the low-hanging fruit that is the Star Wars sequel series, this is one of the reasons why the Star Wars sequel series ends up failing on so many levels, because the characters are in no way relatable or even sympathetic. The closest that we get is Finn, and this is one of the reasons why the dramatic focus on a character like Rey unfortunately did more damage than it did good. Finn as a character is going through a relatable experience in which he has to find himself and make friends in what is pretty much a hostile environment. There are many of us who find ourselves in somewhat hostile environments, whether they be dangerous to our physical health or maybe more dangerous to our mental health, such as being in high school, where we're trying to make friends. Many of us have gone through some sort of crisis of identity, and we've had to change ourselves to some extent. That is something that is relatable. Then Finn becomes a very sympathetic character as we see him struggle, as we see him trying to pull off lies in the very first movie, and then it kind of collapses on himself and he has to then be more honest with himself. Those are things that make him sympathetic. Also, it helps that he was written as a more humorous character within the first movie. Adventurous, humorous, and going through some serious significant change. When we see this as the audience, we find relatable instances in Finn's adventure, and on top of that, we have many different sympathetic moments. Rey as a character was a very sympathetic character within the first movie. There are lots of people who can identify with the breaking down of the family, maybe being an orphan. There's lots of us who would like to get out of the situation that we are in, or we're looking for something that we want to have. This is a moment at the very beginning of Rey's introduction where it's like, you know what, this is relatable and it's pretty sympathetic. We all dream of being something greater than we currently are. However, the thing is that Rey quickly loses that sympathy the moment that she gets off world, and we get to see that she's, well, fantastic at everything. There are definitely some people who are jack of all trades that are amazing at anything that they do, and I love those kinds of people, but the fact of the matter is that that's not very relatable. And when Rey somehow succeeds at possibly everything that she does, it takes away a lot of the sympathy that we might have because we don't see her struggle as much. Rey as a lead could have been absolutely fantastic, but a lot of the sympathy and the relatable moments were stripped away from us as the audience. And this made it hard for a lot of people to give her a good chance. Whereas we love Finn, and so when Finn was sidelined in The Last Jedi, well, then that just made the movie hurt even more to watch. So I actually want to come back to an example that I gave earlier. Brandon Mould's The Beyonders. This is a trilogy that I highly recommend to anyone and everyone. It is a phenomenal fantasy series. And yes, it has 13 and 14-year-olds doing fantastic things and being way smarter than most 13 and 14-year-olds. This is something that I saw some people say, I just can't get into the series because by golly, how on earth is this 13-year-old outsmarting an adult? If you spend a lot of time around preteens and teenagers, you'll find out that they can be pretty crafty and find ways of circumventing an adult's understanding. That is something that, as a teacher, I find that to be quite relatable and honestly pretty hilarious. But what makes Jason and Rachel so relatable and so much fun is that we get to know who they are as individuals in the real world before they go to this fantasy world of Lyrian. We get to see that one of them has a really great family life. The other one, not so much. We see how one has really good friends, but the other doesn't really have very many close friends. We see how one has received a phenomenal education, while the other one is just a public education. And so those are things that people can already start relating with a bit, and then when we get to see Jason and Rachel in action, we have sympathetic moments where Jason makes a ton of mistakes, and that's something that we can all sympathize with. Rachel does some incredible things and advocates for women's rights and does some amazing stuff, which, hey, once again, this is something relatable, it's sympathetic. And then we get to see them stumble through making friends, being betrayed, discovering these secrets, winning and losing. And so these ups and downs pull our heartstrings and make us sympathize with them and really want them to win, because by golly, sometimes they're escaping by just the skin of their teeth. And though they act pretty smart and sometimes pull off some pretty fantastical things, they still act like regular preteens, and they have relatable preteen backgrounds. This is something that pulled me in. Even though I am not like Jason or Rachel, I knew people like Jason and Rachel. I know them even now. And there are certain moments that I myself find relatable. And so I find myself wanting to be in their shoes, and then these sympathetic moments of their losses, or yay, you won, pulls me more and more into the story and helps me to become even more immersed in what is already just a fantastic fantasy setting with some great villains, some great protagonists, and an amazing plot surrounding a prophecy about how evil might be overthrown in a world where evil has won. Already sounds like a fantastic story, but when you start reading it, you find out that what really makes it wonderful are the characters that are involved. And that is what you should be striving for. Don't strive for relatable characters. No, strive to write relatable moments and sympathetic characters. You write those two things, and I guarantee that people will be more interested in your story. You can write some amazing plots, you can create amazing worlds and amazing situations, but if the characters are not sympathetic, and if there are not relatable moments, you will lose your audience. Alright, so that does it for this rant. Please make sure that you head on over to our podcast for more writing advice, and also head on over to our Pinterest page where we have some writing exercises for you to try out. If you would like to be part of some writing discussions and even talk to us about what you've been doing for your own stories, please head on over to our subreddit where we would love to have discussions with you. And if you've liked this video, please make sure that you feel free to comment, share it around, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.